video is on order of operations, or PEMDAS. So that's typically how we've seen it in the past, where P stands for parentheses, E for exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So just remember that multiplication and division are OR statements, so it's whichever comes first from left to right. So whichever comes first from left to right. And the same thing for addition or subtraction. Some other things that we can think about when we talk about parentheses or brackets, and for exponents, roots and radicals are included there as well. When we have multiple parentheses, we start inside and work our way out. Some other grouping symbols that you might see include square roots over multiple numbers, numbers inside the absolute value, or numbers on both the top and bottom of a fraction, meaning that we would start by adding these two numbers together, and then we would square root. So we would get 16, or we would subtract the two numbers together to get 4, or we would subtract on top to get 1/3, and then we would divide. So it tells us that we need to group the numbers together and then complete that operation. So let's go ahead and do an example. So next example, we have 20 divided by 2 times 10. Now, in PEMDAS, yes, multiplication comes before division, but we have to remember that we start from left to right, whichever comes first between those two. So we're going to start by dividing, and then we multiply the two numbers together. Another example that you might see may include 2 cubed plus 1 over -7 minus 4. So, like we said, the grouping symbol tells us that we have to do the top and bottom individually first. But before we can add, we have to do exponents. So we're going to do 2 cubes in our calculator, and we get 8 plus 1 over -7 minus 4. Then we can add our top and bottom to get 9 over -11. And that is our answer because we cannot simplify that any further. So in example C, we have both brackets and parentheses. We're going to start from the inside and work our way out. So we keep the 3 minus consistent and start with 4 minus 6, which gives us -2. And we can also do the other parentheses, 5 minus 9, which gives us -4. So now we've gotten rid of the parentheses, we can work on the brackets, keep the 3 minus consistent, and then do -2 plus -4. Since they're same sign, we find the sum, which is 6, and we keep the sign. So now we get 3 minus -6, which is the same thing as 3 plus 6, or 9, being our final answer. The last thing we're going to talk about is subscripts, and we're going to break that into two pieces, sub and script. So sub means below, and script means writing. So subscript is under writing or below writing. So that would be considered what we see in like x1. That one underneath is our subscript. It's just a way of identifying multiple variables that have the same letter, but we want to distinguish them. So sometimes we use it in like coordinate points and stuff like that, or in problems. So for example, we might see something like x1 minus x2, where x1 is 5 and x2 is 3. So we want to plug in the x1 into x1, or the 5, and subtract it by 3 because that's what x2 is. And then we get 2. So it's almost the same thing as if we had an x and y as different variables, but sometimes we will just see it like x1 and x2.